Now with USC and UCLA in the Big Ten kind of going national over the last couple of decades.
I'm excited about the addition. I think that I'm really proud that the Big Ten continues to evolve and innovate. College athletics is changing, and the Big Ten, I think, has a responsibility to be a leader in that space. It's a great opportunity for the conference, for our program, get into Southern California, a new market for us, great alumni base out that direction, opportunity for us to build our brand in California, recruit more actively, I think, in that area. So I'm excited. Obviously, I loved what the Big Ten was when I was playing in it, but really proud to continue to be what the Big Ten is and what it's becoming.
There's some talk about getting rid of divisions. As playing in the Big Ten before, are you more of a traditionalist, or you talked about wanting to expand and kind of evolving? What's your opinion on divisions?
Well, the traditionalists remember the Big Ten without divisions before, which is what it was when I played in it. And so the Big Ten has gone through several stages of its life cycle, and it wasn't that long ago that we didn't have divisions. Obviously, we do now. I really do value the geographic rivalries that we have. I like the ability for our fans to be able to get in the car and drive and join us on the road. But I also understand that the landscape is changing, and as the membership grows, obviously there's only so many games that we can play. We want to make sure that our teams are all playing one another, that our student athletes have a chance to play in the Rose Bowl against UCLA, that they have a chance to play in the Coliseum against USC. Those to me are important parts of that experience, and so it'll be an evolution. We'll make changes, I think, as we deem appropriate. As I've said from the beginning, I think what's most important to me is that we allow some of these changing landscape pieces to clarify themselves, and then let's make a single round of changes rather than make a series of changes over a period of years. So I'm hopeful that will happen. But it's just a dynamic time in college athletics, and really excited about where the Big Ten's positioned within that.
Josh, do you get the sense that Kevin and the Big Ten officials understand the travel concerns of non-football, like your tennis team, your non-revenue sports going across the country and going over multiple time zones?
I think so, and we've got 2 years here to work with the Big Ten staff and some of our administrators on the various campuses to try and identify the best ways to tackle some of those opportunities. Our student athletes already travel extensively. You look at our warm weather sports, quote unquote, the tennises, the track and fields, the golfs. I mean, they're already on airplanes every weekend, starting back in February, March. Obviously, they're not competing outside in Champaign, Illinois at that time of year, and so most of those teams are already making trips west or south with some regularity. And for us, this provides those student athletes with another great educational opportunity, chance to visit Los Angeles, to be in really dynamic marketplace in our country. There's an element to that as well, and so we'll work through the next 2 years here what some of those logistics may look like. But overall, I think it's going to be a net positive for all of our student athletes, not just our football and men's basketball athletes.
Brett mentioned new helmets, new turf. What's next, I guess, on maybe your wish list or his to continue to add to the program?
We just have to continue to identify those things, and obviously Brett and I are in regular communication, and he helps us identify where those needs are. I think we've really addressed a lot of what I would call the big rocks in terms of our potential to grow and become more competitive. But now we're looking at incremental change. What are some of the things that we can do that will continue to pave the way for the program to progress? But ultimately, those evolve through conversation between he and I, and we try and be as aggressive as we can to address those things as they develop.
Coach explained the importance of having a strong walk-on program when he was going through the interviewing process with you. What did he say to you that convinced you that was important and needed to be expanded?
I think it's no secret in football, a lot of bodies helps. You need bodies to practice, you need bodies to prepare, and I think competition is important. Football is a challenging physical game. You never know where injuries are going to occur. Recruiting is an inexact science. You never know when you think somebody's going to come in and be able to contribute at a certain level. Sometimes that doesn't happen, and vice versa. You bring in some walk-ons who you think may not have the upside, but then all of a sudden they develop during their time on your campus, and there are a lot of stories, not just in Illinois, but across the conference, of people who have come in as walk-ons and really developed into really premier players within the league. So it's a great opportunity for us to really expand the breadth of Illinois football. As we all know, when Coach came on board, recruiting in the state was a focus. Expanding the walk-on program is a great way for us to to really improve our relationships across the state with high school coaches, high school programs, and gives a lot of our in-state players a place to go compete in the Big Ten Conference that we hope they take advantage of.
What were your conversations like with Justin before he left, and did you make efforts to try and keep him in Champaign?
I had a lot of conversation with Justin. He's somebody I have unbelievable respect for. I consider him to be a friend. I was not anticipating that particular call. That was one that the idea that he would transition over to the women's side of the sport wasn't something that I had really expected. But once it became apparent that he was heading that direction, I was very supportive of him. Obviously, to me, it was kind of an apples to oranges comparison. And if he wanted to make that switch over to the women's side, there wasn't a lot that we were going to be able to do to persuade him otherwise. He's a big loss for us. Really a tried and true Illini, obviously dating back to his days as a student athlete, what he was able to accomplish in men's gymnastics, and then later on as an Olympian, and of course in his time as a coach, a national champion coach. You don't have a lot of those, and so just wish him all the best and excited about what's next for him.
What do you see as maybe the biggest challenge or hurdle to clear for the program, like maybe big picture-wise for football, just heading into this year?
I think it's just continuing to gain momentum. I really was pleased with the progress we were able to make last year. I thought we played competitive football in every game except for maybe two. Had a chance to win every game down the stretch. Some of those games we did, some of those games we didn't. But to me, that was meaningful progress. I was really encouraged by the steps we made on the defensive side of the football. Really encouraged about some of the things we've done culturally inside the Smith Center. There's a renewed sense of confidence, energy, and as we head into this new year, I think it's just continuing to build on that. To me, that's really the secret, is you've got to make incremental progress with each year. You can't take steps back. You've got to continue to push yourself forward, and really give Coach B and the staff and the student athletes a lot of credit. They've had an incredibly productive off season, and looking forward to seeing them get out on the field next week.
Josh, what impact does the expansion with UCLA and USC, what does it have on your program, whether positives or concerns?
I think it's all positive. I think anything that ultimately is to the betterment of the Big Ten Conference is to the betterment of the University of Illinois, and that may require some short-term sacrifices for us. It may require us to again make decisions that are in the best interests of the whole, understanding that in the long term what's in the best interest of the whole is in the best interest of us. But I think that in the short term here, it's a great opportunity for us to continue to augment our brand, for us to again be exposed to a new part of the country. Obviously the business elements of it are still to be determined, but the financial upside I think will be meaningful for us and for the other members. So there are a lot of really positive elements to it. It's a great chance for us to affiliate with two of the great brands in college athletics. I think I read somewhere that UCLA and USC have maybe second and third most national championships in all sports of any schools in the country. And so the chance to bring in schools with such great tradition, not just in maybe the most visible sports of football and men's basketball, but all sports, I think just can't help but raise the water level for everybody.
Josh, yesterday, college football expansion, the playoff expansion was kind of a discussion. Do you have an idea, where do you land on that? Is there a number in mind that you think would make sense?
Yeah, I don't have a strong feeling on a number. I have said before, I'm very pro expansion. I think that's something that is inevitable at this point. I think it's not so much a function of if as when and how. There are a lot of logistical questions that are tied up in that in terms of the academic calendar, the number of games you're playing, the future of the bowl system. All those things are important. I just think we've got to get the right people around the table and figure out how to piece it together in a way that makes the most sense. But ultimately, if it's 8 teams, if it's 12, if it's 16, I think there are pros and cons to each one of those models, and just looking forward to being a part of that deliberation and being able to contribute some thoughts.
You spoke a little bit.
The 16-team model that was kind of thrown out there yesterday benefit the Big Ten? I mean, in theory, wouldn't it be more teams from a pretty darn good conference get in?
I think in theory that's right. Yeah, like I said, I think there are pros and cons to every situation. But if it were a true 16 and it was all at large, or if there was some fixed number of AQs but then a large number of at large, I think that you have to believe that the Big Ten, as we continue to grow and establish ourselves both geographically but both traditionally in terms of our programs we're gonna be in a strong position to put a lot of teams into that playoff, and obviously that's important for our long-term viability. But I think both the reputation and brand of the Big Ten as well.
Brett mentioned a good vibe inside the Smith Center. How do you get that to maybe permeate outside the Smith Center just as much?
It just happens. I think that's, and I would say that's already occurring. I feel like there's a really positive vibe throughout our entire athletic department right now. There's a raised expectation for competitiveness. There's great energy. There's great collegiality. There's a lot of support amongst our student athletes for one another. I love it when you go out to a soccer game and you see a bunch of the football players there. You go to the volleyball game, you see the gymnastics team there. That to me speaks volumes about the culture that we've tried to create here. It really lends itself to the ties that I think bind us all together. And it's great the relationships that our head coaches have with one another. I'm really excited about the hire we made yesterday in track and field cross country. Petros Kipriano, he's really one of the dynamic coaches in track and field, brings an unbelievable track record, pun intended there, to our head coaches meetings, and I think that's indicative of the kind of change that we're starting to see throughout our department. The expectations are raised and people are responding, and so it's a fun time to be an Illini, and really looking forward to what this year will bring.
Josh, straight year you're playing week 0, Josh. If that's something, I know you don't have 100% control over this, but if it's something you could do annually, would you? And would it be interesting to you?
I certainly have enjoyed it. It's our first 2 opportunities to do the week 0 thing during my tenure. We'd want to talk with Coach B about it, but I think there are a lot of advantages. Certainly you get the benefit of the second bye week in the midst of the season. I think you get to start a little bit earlier. You get a better feel for who you have coming out of the box. You get to make that week 1 to week 2 improvement before presumably your week 2 opponent plays their first game. And I think, honestly, our fans appreciate it, because we think about bye weeks in terms of our student athletes and their rest and their preparation, but it gives our fans a chance to step away for a weekend as well, and allows them to come back into the stadium the next week refreshed and ready to go. And so I think there are a lot of built-in advantages there. Obviously, we appreciate the national platform it provides, a chance to kind of step out of a crowded space on a traditional Saturday and gain some eyeballs. So there are, I think, a lot of pros to it. We'll see if as we go forward there are more opportunities to try and take advantage of that.
Josh, you spoke about gymnastics. Tom's mentioned gymnastics has gone through a tough time. What's your commitment to the program?
Men's gymnastics is in a really delicate place across the country. I think people realize that. There are fewer than 15 programs left nationwide. I can't remember if it's 4 or 5 now in the Big Ten Conference. It's something that we're continuing to monitor. It clearly is a sport that has a bit of a challenge on its hands right now. I think it remains very strong at the international level, but in the collegiate space, it's really lost a lot of its sponsorship. And so just something that I think we recognize and are continuing to pay close attention to. But it's been a big sport for us for a long time. We've got great tradition in it. I think we're one of the premier men's gymnastics traditions in the country. That's a responsibility that weighs on me heavily, and so we'll just continue to navigate in that space as things evolve.
Josh, you've spoken about scheduling a few times here. What's the importance of maintaining rivalries in the Big Ten with USC and UCLA coming in, and obviously playing Indiana, a rival that you haven't played since 2017 this year?
Again, I think that just comes with the evolution of the Big Ten Conference. I think that we can continue to hold strong to the things that have always been, and we can look to try and evolve into what we think will be going forward. And I love the geographic rivalries. I think that is an important part of who we are, but I think we also have to understand that, again, I want our student athletes to have a chance to play in the Coliseum. I want them to have a chance to play in the Rose Bowl. I want them to have a chance to get out and experience all that the Big Ten in its newly formed stage has to offer. And so we have to, if we're going to try and take some of those things, we have to be willing to give on a couple other fronts at the same time. And ultimately, I have a lot of confidence in our leadership, the Big Ten, that they'll put a schedule together that makes great sense and provides our student athletes with that holistic opportunity.
Piggybacking on that a little bit, what sort of position do you think Illinois is in as college football and college sports generally move into this kind of new era where, we're maybe moving towards these 16-team super conferences and just money is increasingly going up and more important. How do you feel like the Big Ten's acquisition of USC and UCLA positions, the conference in Illinois into that future?
I really am excited about the future of the Big Ten Conference. I'm really excited about the future of the University of Illinois. I think that both Illinois and the Big Ten are well positioned to be leaders in the national landscape as it continues to evolve. I think that really proud of being a founding member of the Big Ten Conference, being located in the state of Illinois, one of the most populous states in the nation. Obviously, our close affiliation with the city of Chicago, the great tradition that we have in some of the key sports in terms of football, men's basketball, the success we've experienced recently on the basketball court, and then the momentum that I feel is building on the football field. I'm really bullish on where we are, on the improvements we're making in all of our sport programs, and ultimately on how that positions us to be a contributing leading member of the Big Ten Conference, which again I think is really the lead conference in all of college sports at this point in time.
One of your cohorts, Gene Smith, has been outspoken about his alma mater being a good fit for this league. Where do you think Notre Dame might fit? How do you think it would go? And is that something?
I don't think it's any secret. Everybody feels like Notre Dame would be a great addition to the Big Ten Conference for a long list of reasons, not the least of which is Gene Smith happened to play football there. But I think that ultimately, of course, they've got their own decisions that they need to make. They exist in a very unique place in college athletics. We certainly respect the tradition of independence that they've enjoyed for a really long time, and they'll make those decisions that are in their own best interest at the time that they think is most appropriate. And so we'll be there to have conversations as they may want to have conversations, but ultimately those are decisions that they're going to have to make.
Is there a quick elevator pitch that you would make to Jack Swarbrick if you were standing here?
I don't know that I'm the one that needs to be making the elevator pitch, but I don't, and nor do I think it's a big secret. I think that the Big Ten is just really well positioned right now to take full advantage of the changing landscape in college athletics, and it does feel like there's a consolidation underfoot. It feels like these affiliations are going to be really critical to future programmatic success, and geographically, of course, we're an obvious fit for what they do. I think philosophically we align well with a lot of the things that I understand from Notre Dame. But again, everybody makes their own decisions in their own timeline, and so just like with UCLA and USC, we're not actively seeking new members, but in this evolving landscape, we'll continue to evaluate opportunities as they're presented to us, and if Notre Dame happens to be one of them, then I'm confident that we would engage in that discussion.
I mean, a month out essentially from the opener, where things stand maybe ticket sales wise, or what's maybe kind of your feeling of maybe the fan interest shown so far?
I think our fans are excited. Ticket interest has been up. We've seen our ticket numbers year over year above where they were a year ago. Last year we had record numbers of student ticket sales, at least the highest number since I believe 2012. We're ahead of pace from where we were a year ago, which is exciting. I always kind of look to our student section to really kind of set the tone for the entire building and really for the pulse of our fan base. And so our students are excited, and we had a number of sellouts in our student section last year. I anticipate and hope that will happen again this year. And as we've gotten out on the road this summer, of course, we started the Illini tailgate tour. We hadn't been in a position to do that in a number of years, thanks largely to COVID. But to get out around the state and visit with our fans where they are, where they live, it was evident just the enthusiasm they have for this football program and the excitement that's in the air with Coach B's arrival, some of the great players that we have. We're going to put the uniform on for us this year. So all things are pointing up, and really looking forward to a great opener, seeing the tailgate lots full again, and having great energy in Memorial Stadium.
To kind of build off that question, will the tailgate tour continue to be a yearly tradition?
It's a great question. I don't know that. I know that we will continue to make efforts to connect with our fans on a very personal basis, whether it takes the shape of the quote-unquote tailgate tour or it's a different iteration, I think remains to be seen. We've got a great group of staff members led by Cassie Arner who helped to drive that strategy for us, and they'll put those plans together probably as we turn the calendar into 2023, start putting together our plans for next summer.
Okay, thank you.